Good morning, all. Morning. I'm Melissa Townsend, the current Honorary Secretary for the Jamaica Institution of Engineers, and I'd like to welcome you all to the fourth and last segment of our Developers Forum series, and a special welcome to those who have joined all four sessions. As you all know, the aim of the series is to enhance the knowledge of the attendees of the various standards, policies, codes, and necessary to design and execute developments appropriately. So just a recap, in our first week, we looked at the basics for foundation design and construction, particularly for high-rise buildings. Then in our second week, we were given some guidance on making submissions to the NWC for water, sewerage, and subdivision developments. And last week, we got a guide on the basic design criteria for wind and earthquake loads, particularly for high-rise buildings. So today we will take a look at the implications of the new development orders on the new Kingston and St. Andrew landscape. Now I'll allow our new budding engineer, Tamir Malloy, to introduce our speakers for today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in our final segment of the Developers Forum series. Today, we have two speakers from the National Environment and Planning Agency, NEPA, to provide some insights on the implications of the development orders on the New Kingston and St. Andrew landscape. Our first speaker is Mr. Dwight Williams, who functions in the capacity of Senior Manager of the Spatial Planning Division in NEPA. He is an urban planner with over 18 years experience, and he currently provides guidance and support towards the preparation of policy documents, planning policy guidelines and strategies to assist the planning authorities and the GOJ in making informed and sustainable decisions relating to the preparation and updating of development orders. We'll also have Miss Camille Douglas Stephenson, who is a registered architect in Jamaica, also employed to NEPA since January 2021. She was previously employed as an associate architect with Martin Lin and Associates. She holds a Master's of Architecture from the Savannah College of Art and Design and a Bachelor of Science from the University of Technology. She's currently the president of the Jamaica Institute of Architects, and a position she has held since May 2021. She's also a member of the Commonwealth Association of Architects, Practice Committee, and Women Leaders Group. So join me in giving them a warm welcome, and I hope you learned something from this session. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tamara. Mr. Williams, you may begin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to start by saying congratulations to the Jamaica Institute of Engineers for this forum. And we are happy to be a part of it, where we can sit and discuss and share matters relating to the sustainable development of Jamaica. Are you hearing me clearly?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so what Ms. Camille Douglas Stephenson has done is to let me do the presentation, and she will answer all the hard questions. Okay, so I will do the presentation for the most part, and then Camille will answer the questions. So once again, thanks for having us. We hope at the end of this session, we would have been able to impart some amount of knowledge and shed some light on the development order for Kingston and St. Andrew, and of course, the wider Jamaica. Before we came on, we were actually discussing matters of time. And what I did was to just amend my presentation a little. So I would have done, this is what my normal order of presentation would have comprised, but I did a little juggling and I shift up to my conclusion slide. Just in case, I know persons are very stretched for time now, but just in case persons would have to leave us early, I want us to have this slide as one of the most important ones that we will discuss. It really goes through right to the question that was asked earlier, and it was mentioned during the introduction. What are the implications of the development order on the Kingston and St. Andrew landscape? I just like to say before I continue also that the Kingston and St. Andrew and the Project Keys Provisional Development Order is now confirmed. So the Honorable Minister has signed the confirmation notification. What is left to be done now, however, is for it to be gazetted as confirmed at the Jamaica Printing Office, but it has been signed. So it is no longer a provisional order, it has been signed as confirmed. So what does this mean? It means that we'll have more orderly and sustained development in our urban spaces. It also means that we'll have more efficient use of our developable lands. So if we should remove our agricultural lands, if we should remove our environmental sensitive lands, if we should remove areas that are prone to disasters, our steep slopes, and what we're left with really is a limited amount of land space for us to develop. And we have to divide this land into housing, residential, commercial, agricultural, educational, green spaces. All of these uses has to be accounted for in urban planning. So we have to use this space in a more efficient way. What this means is that we'll have a reduction in horizontal urban sprawl and more use of our vertical spaces. You will also recognize that there are some areas in Kingston and St. Andrew that have been proposed for increased densities and building heights. And it is not all across the entire Kingston and St. Andrew, but we have strategic locations within what we call our local planning areas or our major nodes, such as our Halfway Tree, New Kingston, Downtown, Crossroads, etc., and along major corridors within our urban center, Constant Spring Road, Marcus Garvey, Red Hills Road, etc., that we would accommodate higher buildings and higher densities in these areas. It also means that we'll have more compact and inclusive urban areas, meaning that we'll have more mixed-use developments, and we're talking about compatible uses now. So you have uses that are compatible that can be allowed to function together. And this will include persons with various challenges, various disabilities, issues relating to blind persons using our sidewalks and the challenges that they face doing so on a daily basis. So the order would have included policies that speaks to having the sidewalks, wider sidewalks, and removing off all those street furnitures and all those light poles and all those impediments that you now see within our sidewalks. It also means that persons will be able to work, live, and shop in a very small geographic area, thereby reducing the need for private motor vehicle and of course the need. It will also reduce our energy bill, and we link that to greenhouse gas emissions, and we link that to climate change. So you can see how this development order is really a climate smart order. It includes the use of smart technologies, the use of renewables, energy solutions in our buildings and our physical and social infrastructure. So that, in a nutshell, really is what the development order would do to the landscape of Kingston and St. Andrew. And of course, if we are talking about higher buildings and vertical space increase, we recognize then that we'll have more green spaces at ground level. where these can be interconnected with suitable pedestrian walkways and amenities. So that is my concluding slide. I could stop here, but I just like to shed some more light on what the development order is really, to help professionals, to help developers, to help clients, to help students, whoever, to understand what a development order entails. So the Town and Country Planning Authority, in its endeavor to bring the entire island under the Town and Country Planning Act, because in about maybe say 20 years ago, several areas in Jamaica was not covered under a development order, meaning that the Town and Country Planning Authority did not have planning control over the entire country. So the Town and Country Planning Authority has mandated NEPA to work in collaboration with the municipal corporations to produce development orders to cover the entire island. What has also been done to supplement these development orders are what we call sustainable development plans or master plans. And we have to date prepared several master plans, which I will introduce to you at a later stage. So what's a development order? A development order is a legal document prepared under the Town and Country Planning Act that is used to guide development in the area to which it applies. Sometimes you may have a development order that constitutes an entire parish, for example, the parish of St. Elizabeth or Manchester. In other cases, you may have development orders prepared for specific areas, such as Negril and Green Island area. You have a development order for Negril and Green Island, and that order spans two parishes. It spans a section of Hanover and a section of Westmoreland. It really is a legal document that has policy guidelines and what we call proposed land use maps and standards relating to land use activities. What are some of the overarching guidelines that we use when we are preparing our development orders? Well, we start with the Sustainable Development Goals. Our Jamaican Constitution also is very important because the Constitution speaks of several rights of citizens. For example, the right to light, the right to privacy, the right to enjoyment of your property, and so forth. And of course, we have to be in sync with the Vision 2030 National Development Plan, our National Spatial Plan, our National Settlement Strategy, and also we use the Smart Road Principles. What are some of the guiding principles? We want to increase the intensity of land use over present levels. So no longer will you see us supporting development that just sprawl all over the entire parish or over the entire lot. We want to make, as I indicated earlier, we want to make more efficient use of land use and also to make more efficient use of the infrastructure that is required to support these land use. So for example, the National Water Commission may indicate to us that in order for them to put in a sewage network or a sewage line in a particular area, they need the numbers to support that infrastructure upgrade. So we want to that is why we concentrate and increase densities in certain areas so that it can support the required infrastructure such as light, water, sewage, and even the transportation network also. I spoke to compact urban areas. We want to maintain or enhance the stability of existing residential neighborhoods. We want to maintain and enhance the existing pedestrian environment. And you'll hear us speak to pedestrian a lot during this presentation because we're not planning for motor cars or just buildings. We're really planning for people. And a large segment of people planning requires us to address issues related to walkability and pedestrians. We want to reduce the reliance on automobile. We want to improve the natural environment and protect our environmental sensitive areas. And we want to provide a diverse mix of compatible land uses. So we don't want persons to live in Portmore and work in Kingston. We don't want persons to work in Mandeville and live in Kingston. We want persons to live in the urban areas. What we are trying to do is to create live urban centers even during the night hours. You have certain urban centers that maybe 7 p.m., 8 p.m., those centers are basically sleeping. And that also would have some implications on public health and safety and security, because there are no persons within those spaces during the night. It is more prone to persons to commit crimes in those areas. So what are some of the objectives of a development order? It regulates development, it protects and conserves amenities, environmental sensitive areas, it secures the coordination of other required infrastructure and services, such as our roads or green spaces. But most importantly, it informs citizens and developers on the location, the scale or magnitude, and the type of development that may be undertaken in a particular area. What are some of the benefits? It promotes sustainable development. It diversifies the economy. It reduces urban sprawl. It protects and preserves environmental sensitive areas. It's also protect our agricultural lands, especially now when we are trying to ensure that we not only secure our energy sector, but we want to secure our food sector. So we have to protect our agricultural lands. It facilitates development of infrastructure and amenities. It protects historic sites. And it also deals with the transportation network, green verges, road reservation, sidewalk, parking, etc. So what are the expected outcomes of having a development order? Orderly development, public safety and well-being, environmental protection, and of course, sustainability. Those are the 4 pillars that we expect to get out of having a confirmed development order for a particular area. This map, really what I want to highlight on this map is just showing the status of development orders for Jamaica currently. You recall earlier I mentioned that maybe 20, 30 years ago, a large portion of the island was not covered by a development order. What we are seeing on screen now is that all of Jamaica, to include our territorial waters, is now covered by a development order. What I'm showing, what color is this? Pink? The pink is basically showing the areas that we have a confirmed development order for. The blue areas such as Hanover, St. James, St. Elizabeth, St. Thomas are what we have provisional development orders for. And the pink with the yellow hatch are areas that we do have a confirmed order for, but we also are now doing a new development order for these areas. So we have a draft development order for these areas to include Negril and Green Island, Trelawney, St. Anne, Manchester, and Portland. And just to give some perspective of, in terms of percentage, 50% of the island now is covered by a confirmed development order, 25% by a provisional development order, and another 25% is covered by a draft development order. So let us look, let us look now at the Kingston and St. Andrew and the Pressure Keys development order. It was made provisional in 2017. The confirmation notification has been signed by the minister in March 2023. And some of the main objectives of this order is to ensure sustainable development, which translates into achieving the goals of Vision 2030 and achieving a livable city for all. It's also, one of the objectives is also improving the quality of life for all citizens within the order area. It's also, the objectives 3 is to provide equitable social, economical, and environmental sectors and the requisite infrastructure and services, and also to prevent urban sprawl and maximizing the available lands, revitalization of blighted areas, and the provision of more green spaces. What are some of the local planning areas that we have in Kingston and St. Andrew? We have Barbican, Halfway Tree, New Kingston, Papine University District, Red Hills, Seymour Lands, downtown, and so forth. And some of the major corridors include Constant Spring, Old Hope Road, Hyde Park, and Spanish Town Road. I indicated earlier that within this order, there's a proposal to have higher densities and higher heights in certain strategic locations. These locations include the Halfway Tree Local Planning Area, New Kingston, Cargill Lands, Crossroads, Southern Mountain View, and downtown. And in some areas, you can see that we are saying that we will support unlimited heights in these areas, subject to the comments and approval of the Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority. And the reason why we have selected these areas for increased heights and densities is really because the requisite infrastructure are already in place or are to be put in place by the government. So, for example, you have good transportation routes, you have good access to different services and social amenities. You have water, you have sewage, you have a good drainage network. So these areas are prime for these type of development. And also we want to provide an incentive to developers to go back into some of these areas to help with the revitalization of these areas. So there are several areas in downtown Kingston where we will say to developers, we are willing to provide you with some incentives. We allow you higher densities. We allow you greater building heights if you go in and help to revitalize some of these blighted areas and help us to bring back life to our downtown area. This is just showing a schematic of where the areas are located in relation to the major corridors in the Kingston and St. Andrew. So we have Halfway Tree, downtown, Southern Mountain View, Cargill Lands, New Kingston, and these are the other nodes that I would have mentioned, such as Barbican, Ligony, Stony Hill, and so forth. And really, it is showing you how these areas are interconnected by the various road networks and how they are centrally located. It is important to note, however, that even though we are supporting higher densities in these urban cores, what will happen now is that as we move towards the less urban areas or the peri-urban areas and into the hillier sections, the densities and building heights would be drastically reduced. So we want our higher densities in our downtown area and in our major urban centers. But as we move towards the peri-urban areas, these densities will be reduced and the building heights will also be reduced. Here I'm just showing you the map of Kingston and St. Andrew with the various densities that has been assigned to the different areas. And if you notice, this blue area here represents downtown Kingston. And downtown Kingston has the highest densities associated. When we move towards, as we gradually move towards the hillier sections, you'll notice that the densities would I'm trying to read what is on the slide here, but I know downtown Kingston has like 150 habitable rooms per acre. It has unlimited building heights, subject of course to Civil Aviation Authority, compared to sections in Stony Hill and Red Hills that are zoned for 30 habitable rooms per acre and maybe 2 or 3 stories. So that is the intention, to have the high densities on the lower lands and in the urban centers and along major corridors. And as we move to the peri-urban areas and into the hillier sections, the densities and building heights are reduced. So we mentioned earlier that we need to go a bit further with the planning, because the development order really is a broad policy document that deals with planning at a national and somewhat regional level. What we require now, however, to translate the policies of the development order at a localized level is what we call master plans. And master plans are really required to drill down and translate the policies in greater detail. So at this stage, you will have more visuals now. So you will have the 3D representations, you have your streetscapes, you have your models being prepared for these more smaller geographic areas. So to date, we have prepared master plans for the Negril and Green Island area, Halfway Tree local planning area, and we're currently working on the Constant Spring local planning area during this financial year. And of course, the proposal is to complete master plans for all the local planning areas, so that when we, for example, speak about 30 habitable rooms and how that would fit on a half-acre property, we find that when we have consultations, there are some persons who are not able to relate to those kinds of numbers. So what we want to do is to translate those numbers into sketches and figures, so it gives a visual of what we are trying to show. And the smart master plan really is trying to get technology to be a part of the planning process, to be a part of the monitoring and enforcement. So we are trying to get smart technology into the buildings itself. You are talking about having climate change solutions. You're talking about having rainwater harvesting. You're talking about having temperature controls in buildings. We also want to have smart economy. We start using cashless devices, smart mobility, smart transportation, and of course, the smart environment. Here, Camille has provided us with some sketches of what the smart master plan for example, Crossroads or Halfway Tree or New Kingston or Constant Spring would some of the components. I spoke to the building earlier, where we have our solar panels, we have our temperature control. So for example, if a room is left vacant for an extended period, the air condition will be cut out, the lighting will be cut out. You have smart water facets in your bathrooms and so forth. This image to the left, bottom left, is indicating smart sidewalks where persons can be riding and walking and generating renewable energy at the same time. The image on my right is really showing the smart grid technologies that can be incorporated in monitoring vehicular congestions on the road. It can communicate to the security forces. It can communicate to the NAA. We can control our traffic signals. For example, if an emergency vehicle is heading in one direction, the smart technology can really control the traffic lights in that direction to allow for quick passage. We have free public Wi-Fi in our public open spaces. So all our green spaces, we are proposing that they are equipped with free public Wi-Fi. We have a park and ride. We want to use more drones to help us with our planning, monitoring, and enforcement. These are just some more examples of including the smart technology in our building fabric and in the environment. So what we're trying to show here now, and I don't know if Camille would want to explain the slide. She's more technically inclined to explain, but we're just showing the different levels as it relates to say a 20-story building in comparison to a low rise in comparison to a mid-rise. Camille, you can just go ahead and explain what we're showing here, please.
So these are just some conceptual illustrations, as the slide says. So this is a part of our thinking, or the process that we're utilizing to determine these high densities in these areas, in these LPA areas. So we understand that we're going to be, for want of a better word, densifying the city areas, the urban cores. That is the best and most efficient way to develop our cities. But we also recognize that it must relate to the human scale. So in doing that, we have a strategy which is really based on principles from other countries throughout the world. So it's not just for Jamaica, where the first, let's say from the first level up to maybe the fourth or sixth level of a building, for example, is usually where the human scale interaction happens in the urban city. Above that, let's say if you're going up to 10, 15, 20 stories, above that is where the expression, or the, for want of a better word, where the engineers and the architects would really get the most creative. But on those lower levels, that is where we have a lot of our interactive spaces, our sidewalk areas, where we can have restaurants, where we would have landscape areas for persons. The image that is above that is really showing the gradation that we have from the urban core, where we expect the highest densities for the city. It steps down into the secondary area, and then from that steps down further to what we would look at as low rise or low intensity areas. So the smaller scale neighborhoods, for instance, which are usually like a single family home, which is 1 or 2 stories, sometimes even 3 stories if it's a smaller scale development. So that is that image in a nutshell.
Thank you, Camille. I could not have done that. So thanks for your assistance there. And
this here just ties back into some of the designs that we want to incorporate for our streets. We're looking at streets that are going to be multifaceted. So we want to have large sidewalk areas, walkways, which are going to be maybe 15 or greater, 15 feet or greater in width. That will allow for families to walk, interact, for persons to get in and out of businesses, restaurants, you name it. We also have bus areas. So that is where the public transportation, at times it may even include, let's say, a tram system or a train system. We also have the bike lanes that would then facilitate persons who are riding to work. That is one of the incorporated design strategies that we want to bring about in our towns and cities, where persons are now walking more, they're riding their bicycles more. And then of course you have the personal individual lanes, which is the typical roadway lane reservations that we have. And another last element would be the refuge area. So it is important to realize in a walkable town that persons will be crossing, persons will need to get from one side to the other. And one of the best and safest strategies we can put in design-wise is to ensure that there is that refuge zone in the middle of what, in this case, it is like a 6-lane highway or a 6-lane roadway. Persons can't be expected to cross an entire 6-lane roadway at once. You must have an area that is safe. And this is also an area that we can incorporate some sustainable design as well, with landscaping, where we can harvest rainwater, for example, with rain gardens. So all of those strategies.
okay, thanks, Camille. And also, just to add to what Camille has indicated, you realize that we want to ensure that the walkways are landscaped with trees to make the walking experience more comfortable for our pedestrians. So we want to provide shaded areas. We want to make it wide. We want to separate it from the main carriageway, where persons are safe to walk on feel comfortable along the sidewalks. There are also provisions for persons with disabilities. So you will have your ramps, you will have areas for persons who are blind, visually impaired. So you'll have those guidelines to help persons to move about within the city more comfortable. As I said, we want to create a city that is compact and inclusive. So we cater to all the different needs of persons within the urban space. I know there's potential, there are developers and potential developers on this call, so I just want to touch a little bit on the applications management system here at NEPA, just to state that NEPA is responsible for the receipt, assessment, and review of specific applications and development proposals. And we refer to that as the Development Application Review Process, or DAR. And our timeline is really a 90-day timeline, providing that all the documents from our professionals are in keeping with what we require, because we recognize that at times we get some applications that are not complete, and there are sometimes where important documentation is missing, and this adds to the time because we have to be back and forth in with the clients, with the developers, to say we need this or we need to provide that. But and it can be less than 90 days. We have applications once they are in keeping with all the requirements, the turnaround time can be less. And this 90 days really is not just for NEPA. It also includes the timeline that is spent with the municipal corporation. So from the time a developer submits an application, whether to the municipal corporations or to NEPA, the 90 days timeline starts. So it's not just for NEPA, it is also for NEPA to circulate to some of the commenting agencies, such as NAA, Mines and Geology, NCC, Water Resources Authority, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Health, for comments, review, and response to the applicant. So we have a target of 90 days, and that's what we work with. What are some of the application types that we handle here at NEPA? As it relates to planning, the Town and Country Planning Authority takes decisions for town and country planning matters. There's also the non-TCPA matter, or what we call the non-government town planner matter, where a recommendation is sent to the municipal corporations. As it relates to subdivisions now, over 9 lots, it goes to a subdivision committee meeting. The recommendations are sent to the municipal corporation. There are instances where an EIA may be required to help in the decision-making process. As it relates to 9 lots and under now, the recommendation is sent to the MC, signed by the government town planner or his designate. There's no need for a subdivision committee meeting in this instance. There are also some applications for environmental licenses, which are required where there's a discharge of pollutants to the environment. And we are talking about now air pollutant discharge or water discharge. There's also a requirement for beach licenses, where you have encroachments on the foreshore and floor of the sea, or where you have commercial, recreational, and industrial use of the foreshore and floor of the sea. And generally, the beach license requires renewal annually. So we are coming up to March 31st now. All the beach license that has been issued previously by the agency, these are coming up for renewal. So if there are any developers out there who have your beach license, now is the time to start. Well, you should have started the process already. In terms of environmental permits now, these are required for specific categories of enterprise of development. So we're talking about maybe storage of hazardous waste. We're talking about maybe petroleum storage, the lines to transport those materials. Those require special environmental permits, and the permits must be granted before a planning approval. So where a development may require both planning and environmental, we're saying that the environmental permit must be granted before the planning approval is given. And these are renewed every 5 years. And as I indicated before, based on the scale of development, based on the type of development, and based on the location, the agency may require an EIA to be submitted also to help us with our review and with the final decision. And here, this is just showing a schematic of the environmental approval process. We try not to go too much to the right, because once we are going to the right, it means that it entails some amount of back and forth, back and forth. We try to have a, try to go in one direction. And what this means, however, is that all is well with the application. So we don't have to send it back, or we don't have to refuse it. We don't have to, and in some cases, if an EIA is required, we will have this lateral movement, because the EIA process dictates that certain steps and procedures, you need to follow those before. So you're talking about review of the EIA, you're talking about a public meeting, and you're talking about other components before it gets back into the stream. So apart from the EIA, what I would encourage persons to do, what I would encourage our professionals to do, is to ensure that we submit applications that are in keeping with the requirements. So it prevents us from having the time to back and forth, back and forth. And guess what? I'm at my conclusion slide again. This is what I took out and put at the top. So the order really will have sustainable development of the city, more efficient use of lands, more compact and inclusive urban spaces. And I want to emphasize the use of smart technology in our building fabric. So what is the way forward? We want to encourage our professional bodies to help spread the vision, encourage our colleagues and clients and developers to promote smart, sustainable, and climate resilient developments. We want to create livable communities that are integrated and inclusive. And I spoke to that earlier. For our children, for our elderly, for persons with disabilities, for persons who want to walk, for persons who want to ride. It should be an integrated community that we are trying to develop. We want also to encourage our professional bodies to contact our Development Assistance Center here at NEPA before you actually go about and start getting your plans drawn, getting incurring different costs before you really get some indication from the agency as to whether or not this type of development can be supported at a particular location. So the Development Assistance Center it was established with the mandate to assist developers in providing it's like a pre-consultative process where you can come in and sit down with the different skill sets within the agency, with also our external partners. So the DSE would invite our external partners to come and sit down at that one meeting where all the information that a developer may need can be provided, and all the guidance can be provided before the actual drawings are done. And we find that when this process is followed, the application process that follows is more streamlined, and it is easier because you would have been previously guided by the Development Assistance Center. We also want to encourage developers to get the requisite professionals to guide and develop the projects. Because if we don't have the right professionals with the experiences, we tend to have projects that are not, that give some challenges. Let me put it that way. For example, a good example, we're now talking about having subterranean parking for some of our developments. Reason being, we're trying to have more green spaces on the ground and less parking spaces and those kind of things. So we encourage subterranean parking in spaces that are suitable. That will require that you get experienced engineers and architects to the design and so forth. So we're saying that you should get the professionals for the different components of your project. You may need an urban planner. You may need a Camille tells me that she needs a registered architect. You need your engineers, surveyors, and so forth. so that you get good projects coming to the agency. We want also, I mentioned that you'll hear me talk about pedestrians a lot. We want to plan for pedestrians. We want walkable neighborhoods with lots of green spaces and amenity areas. We want to use renewable and efficient energy solutions. We want more mixed-use developments. We want to preserve our environmental sensitive areas, and we know we don't have a lot of agricultural lots within KINGSTON, but we're encouraging what we call urban farming. Urban farming, we can utilize the different spaces on the roofs or balconies and so forth to have some urban farming occurring in our space. We want to ensure that we incorporate the guidelines that are outlined in the development order and the development investment manual. And here ended my presentation. Thank you very much for listening. We can now have our discussions if you are so pleased, Chair.
Great. Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Williams. We do have a few questions for you. The first one, well, I guess it's a comment plus a question. Why not think about wind power instead of solar for buildings, seen as solar collection is limited to the square footage of roof surfaces?
Okay, that's a very good observation. I just indicated solar as one of the options. I did not really so yes, that is also where we're practicable, especially within the urban space, because you know the issue, well, there are different designs now, but traditionally the wind turbines that we know, or the wind, I know we have different designs now. I've seen designs that can fit in our urban spaces, but the issue was, the comment is noted. The issue was that I was just giving an example of some of the renewable energy sources that could be used. So whether it is solar, wind, wave, whatever it is, we encourage the use of those.
Great, thanks for that. We have another one for you. The person asking, will everyone benefit? It sounds silly, but I haven't heard about quote unquote squatters, marketplaces, bus, taxi parks, allowable vending areas, and roadworks. I love that people with disabilities are also included because we tend to forget them a lot when we talk about urban development. So I suppose, how do you deal with now the quote unquote squatters and
Right.
marketplaces and taxi parks?
Right. So a lot of those are not really under the jurisdiction or mandate of NEPA. For example, markets are really with the municipal corporations, right? Squatters really, again, is not it's an indication of the housing situation in the country, but it's not a NEPA mandated activity per se. It's really with the Ministry of Housing and again with the municipal corporation. But what the development order does is that it provides spaces that are zoned for residential areas. So for example, if the Housing Agency of Jamaica, if the National Housing Trust want to put up a housing development, they would consult with the development order and find out where the best locations for housing solutions. Also, from a private developer's perspective, we encourage also that you have a mix of housing solutions that can accommodate persons within the different income brackets. So for the squatting, we would not be really involved in removing or relocating squatters, but the development order makes provisions for if and when the relevant agencies want to remove or upgrade. You don't have to remove. Sometimes you can go in and
Relocate
the situation that is existing. Sometimes these squatter settlements just need to be properly planned and the proper services and infrastructure put in place to help them to become a more sustainable community. So that is the answer. The marketplace, we have areas. So when we are preparing the development order, for example, we'll consult with all of the government agencies, departments, agencies, ministries, and we say we're doing a development order. Do you have any plans to put in new markets, or you want to renovate what is existing? And if they give us those locations, the development order will zone those areas for that purpose. But the actual implementation is not NEPA. And I just give you an example of how the order can benefit in the long run. When we're doing the 1966 development order for KINGSTON, at that time, it was not the National Works Agency, maybe the Public Works Department at the time, but the Roads Agency. They indicated to us that they have some plans to expand the corridor leading from Halfway Tree up to Papine. And the development order maintains that corridor, maintains that alignment for that particular improvement. The point that I'm making is that those lands were secured from 1966 for that road widening to take place. And for those of us as old as I am, you remember that the improvement work for that segment of the road took place maybe in 99, maybe early 2099. So if the municipal corporations, for example, state that they want to put up a market in Stony Hill, and they indicate the land space for such, we would zone that space for a market. And even if it is not today or next year, the land would be reserved and protected for that particular use.
Thank you for that response. Just 3 more questions for you. How will rising sea levels and global warming affect urban renewal and site planning standards?
Right. So traditionally, most of our urban centers, most of our town capitals are really located in maybe a 10-kilometer radius from the sea. Most of our major infrastructure also are airports and oil refineries, and those kind of industrial uses are located along the coast. Truth be told, there are very few areas now in Jamaica that you can pinpoint to say it would not be affected by global warming, climate change, and God forbid if we have a tsunami. Very few. We can think about Manchester and maybe Spanish Town. So what we do is that we encourage developers to develop, well, starting from the design phase, to incorporate the climate change, climate mitigation, climate adaptation policies within their developments from now. So we're talking about rainwater harvesting, for example. We're talking about allowing more green spaces on the ground to allow for percolation. We're talking about how we use energy. And you recall me saying that we want persons to walk and ride. So we want less reliance on the motor vehicle, where we have less emissions and less greenhouse gases, and of course, less global warming. So from that standpoint, that is how the development order really tries to address or put forward strategies to address climate change and global warming. Also, Camille can speak to this, the design of the buildings now. We also encourage developers to design and also how you orient the building to maximize on the natural light and the natural air. So again, there's less reliance on the use of fossil fuels for electricity and ACs and those kind of things. So from a development order standpoint, remember, we're not the implementing agencies. We have the policies that would guide development. So those are the policies that we try to incorporate in the urban fabric to ensure that we are doing our part to supporting the climate mitigation strategies of the government.
Great, thank you for that. Will the DAC be able to review preliminary drawings?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
They do. What I'm saying to you, even before you, even if
it's a concept, sometimes the DAC is actually asked to review something that is even further behind than having preliminary designs. Sometimes it is really just a detailed project plan proposal. And those cases actually give us as the agency the best scenario for, especially for larger developments, because at that point we are hearing what the potential developer would like to bring about, and we are able to give the best guidance before you've even invested in cost and time with the design professionals. So what we'll do in those cases is we'll bring all of our in-house specialists. We have persons from the environmental divisions, we have persons from the planning divisions, and then we, depending on where the project is located, we'll get the mines and geology team, we'll get NWA, NWC, and we all sit together and give the most guidance. So at that point, the developer can go back and sit down with the professionals and design towards those goals.
Great. Another one, do the development orders apply to unregistered lands?
Unregistered, meaning you don't have a volume and folio evaluation number assigned. Well, just to, maybe is in the chat, just to say that the development order covers the entire parish that it applies to, all the lands within that space, registered or unregistered. All the lands within the space covered by the development order is under the Town and Country Planning Act. And it extends also to our territorial waters.
Oh, great. Just the last one for you. I know you mentioned about the unlimited height in, say, Crossroads, New Kingston. What is the, I guess, planned height limit for the other areas? Because now you have around maybe 6-7-story apartment buildings now overshadowing 1-story residential homes.
Yes. So the other areas would have the density map that I showed earlier would indicate the densities applicable to those other areas and the building heights. So this map would show the different densities that are assigned to the different areas. And from the densities, then the building heights would be derived from the densities. A lot of the other, what we call our intact residential areas, we have not increased the densities to a level that would cause much discomfort to the existing residents. So, for example, in 1966, the density would have been maybe 30 habitable rooms per acre. All that is done now is that the density is moved 1 tier up to maybe 50 habitable rooms per acre. So, a 1-story building would be maybe a 3-story, as Camille indicated earlier. A 3-story building is considered to be a low-rise residential building. So you may have a 1-story building next to a 3-story building. And of course, because it's a transitional period, it will stick out at the moment, and it may provide some amount of discomfort. But it is not, once the transition has been completed, with every development, there are going to be a little phase that will pose some nuisances and challenges to persons, especially if they're operating or living in the space. So the transition that you may see going on in other areas now, it may look to be like an odd one out, but it's just because it is the first of those many lots that would have used the new guidelines that are approved for those areas. So you may see areas that was predominantly single family. You are now having developments where you have 2 stories, 3 stories occurring in that space. And it's not that they are not in keeping with the order, but it's because some of the densities and heights have been revised for those areas. But this map, I know it is not, based on the scale now, it is not quite clear, but it would be, it can be found on the agency's website, and persons can have a better look at the different density allocations for the different areas within the urban center.
Okay, I know you have to run, so I'll just wrap up with this one. First, someone is asking, is the density map available online? And perhaps you can share the contact information for the DAC.
Okay, that will do. I'll type the DAC contact information in the chat. And yes, the density map, well, the entire development order is available on the agency's website. And what I would say though, I indicated earlier in my presentation that the confirmation notification is now signed, and that confirmation notification contains the changes to the 2017 Professional Development Order. So you may see a policy in the 2017 Development Order, and you may not know if there were changes until you have received the confirmation notification that was signed. So I would just encourage persons to, yes, you can view what is there now, but you should also await the publication of the the signed confirmation notification that reflects some changes to the existing Professional Development Order.
Great, thank you for that. I'll just allow our graduate council member, Michael James, to wrap us up.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Townsend. All right, so this morning, we spoke about the implications of the development order in the Kingston and St. Andrew area. All right, and Mr. Williams, spoken about the implications, went in depth about the implications of it being more orderly and sustainable development, more efficient use of developable lands, a reduction in horizontal urban sprawl, and more use of vertical spaces. And yes, you would have spoken about the support of unlimited heights, of course, with the input of the Aviation Association, but a vital part of revitalizing those areas is very important. And of course, personally, I'm looking forward to that general smart master plan, the use of more smarter technologies in our cities. That is something that I'm personally looking forward to. So thank you very much, both to you, Mr. Dwight Williams and Ms. Camille Douglas Stephenson, for giving us your insight and your input in the implications of the development orders of the New Kingston, on the New Kingston and St. Andrew landscape.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Now, for everybody else, the Developers Forum was aimed to provide a guide in the development process and seeks further information and knowledge, for all of us about the funding and permits and policies and standards. And that is what we would have done throughout this series. All right, from the segment 1, which spoke about high rise, on the rise, and what the geotechnical engineers are doing about it and how they are rising to the challenge. Right, we had that segment with Engineer Clyde Gray. Segment 2 with Engineer Ian Bennett was about portable water storage and subdivisions, the development application process. Segment 3 was with Engineer Peter Jarvis, and he spoke about building design, wind and earthquake loads. And today, our final segment was about the implications of development orders on the New Kingston and St. Andrew areas. So I hope everybody would have gained a bit of knowledge on these different segments that we can take it further in our different spheres of our engineering careers. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us for the 4 weeks of our Developers Forum series. Now, for those who are interested, all the sessions have been recorded, so stay tuned and stay close to our social media and our YouTube page. They will be posted on our YouTube channel. All right, so stay tuned and share with others that we have the information here that we've presented to share with everybody else. All right, now the next activity of JIE is our Civil Division Road Safety Seminar. Now this will be held face-to-face. So I hope everybody is looking forward to that. That would be held next month. So stay tuned, follow us on our different social medias at JIE Jamaica. That's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. add us on Facebook and everything, and on our YouTube channel. All right, that is where we'll disseminate a lot of our information about upcoming events. All right, so thank you everybody for joining us, and I hope we have a productive day.
Because it's always. Oh.